morning. Oh my goodness. Well, today I think I'm going to read part of the Chandipat. Now, you've heard me talk about this before, about Kali and about the Chandipat. Now, the best translation is this one by Swami Shivananda Saraswati, okay? And unfortunately, it's very, very difficult to get this book anymore. I had to pay over $100 for this copy because my copy got lost somewhere in my move. And so I bit the bullet and paid over $100 for this book. Oh my goodness. But anyway, today I'm going to read about, what is this path? What's the path I teach? What is, it's about Kundalini, okay? And it's about consciousness. I call Kundalini the roto-rooter of consciousness. So anyway, this talks, you have people that don't understand about Kali. They want to demonize it because it's fearsome looking when you see some of the pictures of Kali and she's standing there, with blood dripping out of her mouth, standing on Shiva. It's representing the consciousness, okay, prior to form and in form, and about having to face your fears. It's fearsome to look at her at the beginning, but it's about facing your fears and doing the path through consciousness. And so I'm going to go ahead and read this, and it talks about the path, what you use in the path to go forward to realization. Okay, let me take these out here for a minute. Oh my goodness. Okay. So this is about the application. Now there's a lot more in here about the different aspects of Kali. Kali has 10 different aspects called the Mahavijjas, okay? Different aspects which address different things. But we're just going to read about this, about dhyana, the meditation, on what the path is about, basically, and what's used in the path to go forward to realization. So we're going to go ahead and start with this. Om, presenting the middle episode, the consciousness, which pervades all, is the seer. The great goddess of true wealth is the deity. Now, true wealth, it's not about financial money. It's about true wealth, peace that passes understanding, that knowing, okay, that realization, coming to the truth of being. That's the true wealth, okay? Sakambari is the energy, Durga is the seed, air is the principle, Yajurveda is the intrinsic nature for the satisfaction of the great goddess of true wealth. This episode is being applied. Okay. She with the beautiful face, the destroyer of the great ego. Okay. So that's what this is about. This is about going beyond ego, okay? The dismantling of ego. So the destroyer of the great ego is seated upon the lotus of peace. And that's what remains when one has gone and dismantled ego, the illusion, okay? In her hands, she holds the rosary of alphabets, the battle axe of good actions. These are the things you use to progress on the path. Battle axe of good actions, the club of articulation, the arrow of speech, the thunderbolt of illumination, the lotus of peace, the bow of determination, the water pot of purification, the staff of discipline, energy, the sword of worship, the shield of faith, the conch of vibrations, the bell of continuous tone, the wine cup of joy, the pike of concentration, the net of unity, and the discus of revolving time, named excellent intuitive vision. Okay? So being able to have the vision to see things take time. Things take time. So holding to that faith says, I worship that great goddess of true wealth. Okay? I want to go to realization. And these are the tools that are used. Okay? So it's describing what the path is about. Now it talks about how all these things, how about ego and how all of this stuff came about. In former times, the forces of peace and divinity had a dreadful encounter. So what happened with peace and divinity? Okay. So this is kind of like, in a way, the Garden of Eden. In the beginning, they were there. They were peaceful. They knew they were part with God, okay? There was that connection, that knowing, okay? So the forces of peace and divinity had a dreadful encounter with the forces of thought, okay? Which continued for a full 100 years. The commander of the army of thought was the great ego. Okay? Ego creates these thoughts. And the leader of the army of clear perception was the rule of peace. If you have clarity of perception, you will be peace. Okay? So let's go forward. The army of the gods was vanquished by the very powerful thoughts, and all the gods were being subdued. The great ego assumed the authority of the rule of the pure. Okay? Then the defeated gods, led by the lotus-born Lord of Being, went to where the supreme consciousness and the brilliance which pervades all were staying. The gods gave the narration of the exploits of the great ego at length, and told of their defeat by the forces of thought. The authority of the light of wisdom, the rule of the pure, the light of meditation, emancipation, devotion, the power which controls, the Lord of equilibrium, and the other gods has been usurped by ego. Okay? And now he governs over all. So there was the falling into ego. Just like it talks about Satan was, at first, what was he? He was the head of the choral, the heavenly choir. And he fell in ego. Okay? He fell, he wanted the glory for himself. Okay? So again, this is talking about that same type of thing. There was a falling away into ego and these errant thoughts. Okay? So let's go forward. That wicked ego has cast all of the gods from heaven, and now in the manner of men they wander about the earth. Now, in the Bible as well, it says, when they were questioning Christ and say, how dare you say you're the Son of God? And he says, doesn't the Bible say you're gods? Okay? Doesn't the Bible say you're God's? It's in the Bible, okay? So the same thing, the gods fell, okay? They fell into ego. So all of the thoughts, all that the thoughts have done has been reported to you. We've come for your protection. Now you please think of the manner of their destruction. Then the slayer of too much and the bliss of being became enraged over the conduct of the thoughts, and their faces frowned in anger. And in excessive rage a great light emanated from the face of he who holds the discus of revolving time, and from the creative capacity and the consciousness of infinite goodness as well. The rule of the pure, and all the other gods too, emitted great lights from their bodies, and all of the lights united to form one of light of radiant splendor. So they put all their energies together, okay? The gods saw that great collection of light like a blazing mountain that pervaded all the directions with its flames. There was nothing to compare with this light, which emanated from the bodies of all the gods, and after collecting into one, it assumed a feminine form, whose illumination was apparent throughout the three worlds. So they combined all their energies, all of these good, pure being, light, love, all of those things combined their energies and created Durga, okay? And Durga, well, you'll hear here, she also distilled the essence of being to create Kali. So let's continue forward. From the light, which had come from the source of bliss, to existence, her face became manifested from the power which controls the hair, from the consciousness which pervades all, her arms. From the light of devotion came her breasts, and from the light of the rule of the pure, her midsection. From the light of the Lord of equilibrium came her legs and thighs, and from the light of earth, her buttocks and hips. Okay? So she's becoming a form from all of these different energies. From the light of the creative capacity came her feet, and from the light of radiance, her toes. From the finders of the wealth came her fingers, and from the guardians of treasure, her nose. All of her teeth came from the Lord of Being, and from the clarity of meditation, her three eyes became apparent. From the light of time and worship, her eyebrows were manifested, and from desiring excellence, her ears came to being. And all the other gods, too, gave their lights to the formation of the energy of infinite goodness. Then the gods, who were troubled by the great ego, seeing the grandeur of the goddess manifested from their united lights, experienced extreme joy. The bearer of the trident of unity took from his trident another trident and presented it to the goddess. Then the doer of all, taking from the discus of revolving time, manifested a second discus and bestowed it upon her. Equilibrium donated the conch of vibrations, and the light of meditation gave her his energy. Emancipation gave her his bow of determination and 2 quivers full of arrows. The rule of the pure with 1,000 eyes took from his thunderbolt of illumination a second thunderbolt and presented it to the goddess. And from his elephant, love for all, a bell of continuous tone was donated. From the power which controls came the staff of discipline, and the Lord of Equilibrium presented the net of unity. The Lord of Being, a rosary of letters, the creative capacity, the bowl of renunciation. The divine being of light filled the pores of her skin with rays of light, and time gave the sword of worship and a brilliant shield. The ocean of pure thoughts gave a necklace of excellent gems and garments which never lose their luster, and donated earrings, a divine crest, and bangles, and a halo of light. The radiant half-moon gave bracelets for her arms, anklets for her feet, a beautiful neck ornament, and rings of precious stones for her fingers, and the universal doer gave his extremely holy acts of good actions. Okay. All manner of weapons and impenetrable armor were presented to protect her head and breast, and from true wealth a garland of lotuses were given which would never lose their luster. The sea presented a beautiful lotus, the blessing of peace, and the Himalayas gave the jewel of the lion of courage upon which to ride. So do you see, all of these things are used in the path to go forward. Let's continue forward. The Lord of Wealth gave a drinking vessel constantly full of intoxicating spirit, and the ultimate Lord of all serpents of energy, by which the earth is sustained, gave great jewels which shine luminously in a necklace of serpents. Other gods too bestowed ornaments and weapons upon the goddess. After being worshipped again and again, she laughed and roared in a high tone, and her dreadful sound resounded through the ether. The goddess caused such an excessive noise, which caused all the worlds to shake and the oceans to rage. The earth rocked, the mountains shook, and the gods were extremely pleased and joyfully cried out to the lion rider, "Victory be yours." And with great satisfaction, wise men praised the image of their worship, bowing with devotion, seeing the three worlds in such a commotion. The army of thoughts adorned their armor and took up their weapons and stood together. The great ego, in excessive anger, exclaimed, "What is this?" Then, along with all the thoughts that had assembled ready to attack, he ran towards the ultimate sound and saw the goddess illuminating the three worlds. Okay. Her feet stood upon the earth, and her crown touched the furthest reaches of the atmosphere. The twang of her bow string sent fear through the 7 regions of hell. The 1,000 armies of this goddess covered all directions. The 1,000 arms of this goddess covered all the directions. And then began the battle between the goddess and the thoughts. Okay. So this is the path to liberation, to moksha, Okay? This is what takes place when one is in meditation, contemplation, questioning, what is this I? What is this? Okay? So let's continue forward. Many kinds of weapons illuminated the entire atmosphere in flight, and a very powerful general of the great ego, devoid of clear understanding, rose to do battle. So first thing we have is illusion, devoid of understanding, okay? Caught in the spin, erroneous ideations, okay? Thinking they know and they don't know, okay? So let's continue. Fickleness waged battle with his 4 divisions of horses, elephants, chariots, and infantry of great strength, and haughtiness joined the fray with 60,000 chariots. With hundreds of thousands, the great deceiver, and with his army of 10 million foot soldiers, want of a resolution, a great thought came to the battle. So these are the things one battles with. Erroneous thoughts, the drama, that illusions of truth that one holds to be true but are not true, but keep one bound, keep one, okay? So let's go forward. With 6 million soldiers, memories entered the battlefield. Memories, 6,000 soldiers, okay? So you have erroneous memories, drama going on. So they had the thousands of elephants and horses wandering to and fro. Hypocrisy joined in the fighting, with 5,000 million chariots assembled, and moreover tens of thousands of great thoughts on elephants and horses. Wandering to and fro, fought on in that battle with his chariots racing about, and others too continued to fight. Their chariots and elephants kept coming. The great thoughts fought and fought in that battle with the goddess. Uncountable thousands of warriors and chariots, horses and elephants accumulated there. The great ego himself joined the battle with his huge javelin, his small javelin, his energy, and his mace. Other thoughts fought and fought in that battle and tried to strike the goddess with their swords, with all of their energies, and to bind her with their nets. Okay? They were trying to kill the goddess with their swords, and the goddess, she who tears apart thought, attacked them with her own weapons. Playfully, the goddess rained upon her attackers a shower of her own weapons and mantras, which cut all their weapons to pieces, while gods and seers praised her with hymns and minds of divinity. Okay? So while the thoughts, the ego drama is angry, pissed off. She's playing. She says, yeah, okay. Okay. Do your worst. Okay. Her face was not the slightest exertion as the Empress of the universe hurled weapon after weapon upon the body of the attackers, and the lion of the goddess, shaking its mane with rage, strolled through the army of thoughts like a forest conflagration. Each expiration of the breath of the Mother of the universe manifested there as her army, numbering in hundreds and thousands, fighting in the battle with the axe, javelin, sword, and spear. Okay. The goddess and her immense energy destroyed numbers of thoughts, while beating on the drum and sounding the conch, and playing cymbals and swinging the club and trident and raining energy in that festival of battle. And the terrible noise of her bell stunned the great thoughts to unconsciousness, while she cut them with her sword. How many thousands fell to their death? Many thoughts were bound by the net and dragged to the earth. Many thoughts were cut into two by the sharp edge of her sword. How many thoughts fell wounded to the earth from the impact of the club, and how many struck by the mace, and being extremely injured vomited forth blood. Some thoughts pierced the breast by the pike, fell to the earth in a heap. How many thoughts in that battlefield struck by a rain of arrows were cut apart? Several of the numbers of thoughts who had tormented the gods relinquished their vital breath. Many others lost their arms or necks and were reduced to dust. How many fell with their heads split apart? How many with their bodies divided at the midsection? Many cut from the hips fell. Many lost an arm, a foot, or an eye, or were torn into two pieces. Many thoughts with their heads severed rose again as headless bodies in a terrible form to take up their arms and continue to battle with the goddess. Other headless torsos danced to the rhythmic music of the battle, and many without heads shouted at the goddess, "Stop! Stop!" Where there that terrible encounter took place, the earth was covered with chariots, elephants, horses, and thoughts, which the goddess had caused to fall. So there was no possibility to find a path by which to come and go. From the army of thoughts and from their elephants and horses poured forth so much blood as to create a great river. Within an instant, that gigantic army of thoughts perished before the Mother of the universe, just as grass and timber are reduced to ashes in a moment by a great fire. And that lion, shaking its mane to and fro, roaring loudly, extracted the life force from many thoughts. Thus the goddess and her army waged battle with the multitude of great thoughts, as the gods in heaven were extremely joyous and showered the earth with flowers. Okay, so we remember, the things that things that she was fighting with. Okay, the bow of determination, battle axe, good intentions, arrow of speech, thunderbolt, the sword of worship, okay, shield of faith, the wine cup of joy, pike of concentration, net of unity, okay. So these are the things that you're fighting with against thoughts, against ego, against the drama, okay. So let's continue forward. It's talking about the beauty of her, but let's go forward. Om, the Rishis said. Now the Rishis are sages. They're the ones of wisdom that walk the path, okay, come to knowledge. So when the great thoughts thus saw their forces being destroyed, that heroic general, devoid of clear understanding, in great anger, proceeded to battle with the Mother of the universe. And how many times have we seen those that are devoid of understanding want to just argue something? Okay? You can be giving them the truth, but they'll want to argue. Okay? So let's go forward. That thought rained upon the goddess, a cloud of the arrows of various doubts. Okay? So again, this is what the darkness does. It wants to create a seed of doubt. Okay, I've talked about this a number of times. It will try to create a seed of doubt, plant a seed of doubt, okay, and then start twisting it, okay. But let's go forward. A cloud of arrows of various doubts is plentiful as the waters which fall from a cloud upon Mount Meru. Mount Meru is the center of the universe, okay? So going forward, then the goddess fired a multitude of arrows, which cut his arrows into pieces, and also killed his horses and all his chariots. So she's putting out the truth. She's putting out the truth, continuing to put that out. And it finally breaks through some of that erroneous drama. So let's keep going forward. With this she also cut his bow and his exceedingly high banner. After cutting his bow, she pierced his body with her arrows. Losing his bow, chariot, horses, and charioteer, that thought took up his sword and shield and ran after the goddess. With the sharp edge of his sword he struck the lion on the head, and with great speed he gave a blow to the goddess on her left arm. When that sword touched her body, it broke into pieces. And that angry thought of many considerations took a pike in his hand. Okay? So if you are within reality, realization, okay, these drama thoughts of negativity cannot pierce. It cannot, okay? It's not going to do damage. Okay, so let's go forward. And that great thought threw that glaring pike at the excellent one beyond time, just as the sun fills the heavens with dazzling luster. When the goddess saw that pike coming at her, she too let loose her pike, which split his weapon into numerous pieces, and devoid of clear understanding gave up his life. Okay? You've got to continue to persevere, 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 and eventually you'll cut through. Okay, you cut through. After the death of that valiant general in the army of the great ego, devoid of clear understanding, who had been the source of affliction to many gods, fickleness approached mounted on an elephant. So we get rid of one, yeah, here comes another one. He attacked the goddess from above with his energy, but the mother of the universe, with the shout of her mantra, Hum, Hum, wounded him. And deprived of light, the energy fell to the earth. Okay? When he found that his energy was broken, fickleness became intensely angry. Now he threw his pike at her, but the goddess cut it with her arrows, okay? With truth, okay? You're going to cut fickleness, the illusion, with truth. In all of this, the lion of the goddess jumped upon the head of the elephant and began an intensive battle with that thought. Now remember, the elephant is what? Love. The elephant is love. Those two fought, and the elephant fell to the ground, when they rose in excessive rage and began to fight again with fierce blows. Thereafter, with great speed, the lion leapt into the air, atmosphere, and falling from the sky, severed the head of fickleness from his body. Haughtiness. So the next one, haughtiness, okay, was slain by the goddess with stones and trees in that battlefield. And striking with his paws and biting with his teeth, the lion brought down disbelief. So the lion is what? Courage. Courage brings down disbelief. Courage brings down disbelief. Striking angrily with her club, the goddess reduced arrogance to powder. Memories was cut by the sword, and anxiety and blindness by her arrows. Violent temper and passion and the great deceiver too were slain by the three-eyed seer of all. Okay? So once you can see, one gains in realization, then temper and passion, those things are, okay? Hypocrisy's head was cut by the sword, and irresistible temptation and foul mouth were both sent to the kingdom of death by her arrows, again by truth. Seeing his army thus being destroyed, the great ego assumed the form of a buffalo, and he himself began to terrify the troops of the goddess. Sometimes he fought with his snout, sometimes kicking with his hooves in the air, sometimes hitting with his tail, sometimes whirling around while ripping with his horns. With great speed and a great war cry, his breath puffing in exertion, he scattered the troops over the ground. Having laid low the troops of her enemy, of her army, that thought advanced to kill the lion of the goddess. Then the mother of the universe became very angry. The great evil one, the great ego, also became very angry. He kicked the earth with his hoofs and raised large mountains with his horns and threw them aside as he roared. With the great speed of his thought, the earth split in fear. His tail lashed the sea of desire, causing the waters to flood the earth. So the earth was flooded with desires, okay? Great ego is fighting out with trying to raise desires. Tossing about his horns, he dashed and split the heavens to pieces, and cast up by the violent speed of the breath of winds, mountains fell from the sky. And waging battle in his great anger, the great thought advanced towards her, while she who tears apart thought assumed anger and prepared to slay him. Throwing her net, she bound that great thought. After being bound in that great encounter, he left his form as a buffalo. So what was the net? The net is unity, okay? So when we have unity, we can bind that, okay? And what's coming now is just, where three or more are gathered, I am there in the midst of them. Unity, unity, okay? Where there's more than one, there is more strength, more, okay? So let's go forward. Thereafter, he manifested in the form of a lion. In this condition, the mother of the universe was prepared to cut off his head. But somehow, he changed his form again to that of a man bearing a sword. So, ego is going to change. It's going to change. It's going to change. It's like a chameleon. Continuing forward. Then the goddess instantly rained upon him a shower of arrows, and with sword and shield. Okay? She was ready to pierce him. Just then he took the form of the king of elephants. With his trunk he began to pull the huge lion of the goddess and to roar. But just as he was pulling, she cut the trunk with her sword. Okay? Then that great thought again wore the body of a buffalo. And in the manner as before, with the inhalation and exhalation of his breath, he shook the three worlds with all that moves and moves not. In a great rage, the mother of the perceivable world, she who tears apart thought, again and again drank an excellent spirit, and with red eyes began to laugh. Okay? So, drank that excellent spirit, that bliss, okay? In that bliss. She's not being rattled by him, not being rattled by the ego drama that it wants to put out there, okay? There in the strength and boldness of that wild ecstasy, that evil demon roared, and with his horns threw mountains at she who tears apart thought. She began to pulverize those mountains with her arrows of speech, okay? Speaking in the ecstasy of spirit, her mouth became red and her tongue was stuttering. The goddess said, "Roar and roar, you fool. For so long as I drink this spirit, roar as much as you like." Okay? Your death is in my hands, and when I have finished drinking, soon the gods will be roaring. Okay? So, again, what's the Bible say? Fear not. Have no fear. Rest in the spirit. Okay? He that's within you is greater than he that's within the world. Okay? The divine is greater than any of these thoughts, these dramas, these ego things that want to come. Okay? Thus speaking, the goddess leaped and ascended above that great thought. She goes above it. Okay? Do your worst. Pressing down upon him and holding him with her foot, she struck him in the throat with her pike. The great ego, again, hit by the foot of the goddess, changed his form with his mouth, but was able to free only half of his body, and with her great strength the goddess restrained that as well. Even with the half of his body coming out, the great thought waged battle with the goddess. Then the goddess cut off his head with a great double-edged sword. Shrieking and crying, the remaining thoughts of that army ran away, and all the gods became exceedingly joyous. In great satisfaction, the gods joined the great seers in hymns of praise to the goddess, while the celestial chorus and nymphs sang with joy. So I'm going to leave this here, but there's much more to go, okay? There's much more to go. But again, this is a telling of the path one walks to realization, encountering the thoughts, observation, and what one uses to go cut through ego and the rest of this drama that arises within the world of a duality. So thanks for tuning in, and look in for part 2.